Welcome to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin, and next to me is the Doctor himself.
Hello.
And as always, we are joined by our producer, Richard.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Each week, we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC comics and movies while fielding questions from listeners like you, while I quietly ponder the future success of my band, The Trail, found at facebook.com/thetrailsounds.
See, it's not shameless self-promotion if I write it and make you read it.
That's true, yeah. It's shamed.
I feel like after what I gave you last week.
This is like the equivalent of like when you're a kid and your family's over and your mom's like, play the thing you learned at piano. Like, do it.
It's very pandering.
Play it for your aunts.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
We never do. Every other podcast does like self-promotion where they like talk about where you can find them online.
Yeah.
And we never
you've got a thing to plug. We should totally be supporting it. So yeah.
I made you read that entire thing from Mambo number 5.
Yeah. If you liked Mambo number 5, you'll love The Trail.
No, you won't.
Never mind. Sorry.
You will hate The Trail. It's less fun, good times, and more like psychedelic folk rock.
And very depressing lyrics.
It feels
depressing lyrics. That is where I live.
Yeah, it's very like, I don't know. I did a lot of the writing for it close to the ocean in the Pacific Northwest, and so I figure like
while I was thinking of jumping in.
No, actually, I hate the ocean.
Oh my god, me too.
Yeah, so it was like just sitting there looking at it like, fuck, I hate you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is your diss album.
Yeah.
To the ocean.
Yeah,
this is his opus. Mr. Holland.
Oh my god.
It's Richard Dreyfuss.
And in news,
What about Bob?
Shazam finds it's Billy Batson with Andy Mack actor.
Yeah. So last week, we got to talk about the fact that Shazam was cast, but Zachary Levi from Chuck was playing Shazam, and now they have the other half of that cast, which is the child, Billy Batson. This actor, I'm not familiar with.
He's a young, like Disney actor.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to be familiar with his work.
I'd be concerned
on account of he's a child.
But I mean, again, like on these like topical levels, which is kind of like some of the only things you can go on at this stage of the game, looks about right.
Yeah.
Looks like a reasonable child approximation of Zachary Levi. Looks like Billy Batson a little bit from the comics. So we now have a Billy Batson. We have a Shazam. And in our next news piece, we may have another character.
So hold on, are we not allowed to say this kid's name on account of he's underage?
I legitimately can't remember what it is.
Okay.
Oh, it's
Sorry, I wasn't just being coy.
It's Asher Angel. That's
That's
right,
a terrible name.
It's a kid. It's a name of a kid who was probably born in like 2010.
Ash.
Oh.
If it was Ash or Angel, I would think it was
my
his
God.
like emo band.
Oh my god, I feel like I was in that band.
Yeah, right. We were all in that band.
I most certainly was not.
Hey, I was in an emo band called From This Day Forward. So
Ooh,
yeah.
there you go.
And A Winter's Nightmare. That was another one.
I was in a band once called Solara.
Oh yeah, I could see you in a Solara. Yeah.
Math rock for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Mark Strong in talks to play villain Dr. Savannah in Shazam.
All right.
Dr. Savannah.
No, we're not going back there.
The Doctors of Savannah.
Oh, Shazam, I see what you're doing there.
There's no juleps. No juleps.
Just a little bit of mint there.
Dr. Savannah, S-I-V.
Savannah. That's what I said. I said Savannah.
I know, but it's not how it goes here. Is
Savannah?
Dr. Savannah is Shazam's arch enemy. Shazam gets his powers from magic lightning, and Dr. Savannah is a scientist who is constantly trying to take down.
I thought Black Adam was.
Well, I mean, like, yes, in that Black Adam is a major villain, but when you think of an arch enemy, to me, they're more like that's who your opposite number is, right?
I smell an episode.
You know, like Superman fights General Zod, but General Zod's not his arch enemy. Lex Luthor is.
No, it's just a guy he dislikes a little bit.
Yeah, right. So Dr. Savannah is the arch enemy for Shazam. And Mark Strong, who is...
Like Mussolini was a bad guy, but like Hitler is my arch enemy.
If you want
if
to
you
think
were
of it
around
that way.
for that, yeah.
As a
maybe.
Jew, I feel like it's like...
Oh my god. You...
I think it's only fair.
This is what happens when you go on Ancestry.com too many times. It's like WebMD. You just think you have cancer now.
This is what happens when I pause too much while talking. But Mark Strong was previously in a different DC movie. He played Sinestro in an otherwise terrible Green Lantern movie, but he was terrific in that. He really like captured that character. And so I'm excited to see him as Dr. Savannah. Now, usually in the comics, Dr. Savannah is like old and
wears
wrinkled.
a white suit.
He wears like a lab coat and he's
has a drink in his hand.
No,
a big hat.
and
those delicious
he's wrinkled and things like
that.
that. But in the New 52, when they introduced Shazam, Dr. Savannah was like kind of a guy around Mark Strong's age, like in his 40s, like kind of healthy. And then by exposure to magic, it kind of like started draining his life force a bit. And that's what aged him. So maybe that's the way that the movie will be going. Maybe we'll see something happen to Dr. Savannah for which he blames Shazam.
It wasn't all the heroin he did?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, good. Undateable creator Adams, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, to write Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam movie for DC. New line.
Can you pronounce that, Doc? Ezekiel?
Yeah, I think it's probably like Ezekiel.
Yeah, I fucking nailed it.
Zeitkyle. No. Sorry, I fucked up.
I've never heard of this guy, and I've never heard of Undateable. What's Undateable? Is it a movie or a TV show?
Undateable was a
Great
TV show. What was his name? Chris D'Elia.
Yep.
Is the lead in it?
I like him.
Yeah, it's like a quirky '90s sitcom, like sit around sitcom kind of thing,
Right.
centered around a bar
In Detroit.
in Detroit. Yeah.
But basically, this corroborates other things. Excuse me, that I've read online, which is that this guy is a comedy writer
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
writing Black Adam.
If you're going to be writing anything for The Rock, it better be comedy.
I don't like that though. That's not what I want for Black Adam.
Well,
guess you should have fucking written it yourself then.
you should probably go talk to Adam Z. Kyle.
No.
Can we edit that out?
No. Well, yes, we can, but
Oh, let me ask the editor.
We were on such a good streak. We went like 8 episodes without like horrible
okay,
things said.
I have to apologize for that. I took a stab at pronouncing the name, and I really
True.
put the bug in his ear.
I wasn't going to say anything.
The lesson is
I'm sorry.
never read out loud.
See?
To anyone for any reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, so basically, I guess like there's a comedy writer writing Black Adam for The Rock. I mean, it's not to say that because he wrote comedy, everything he writes from now on will be comedy. But when you know how Hollywood works, you look at someone's kind of CV and you basically give them the things you know they can do because they've demonstrated that they can do them.
Yeah, you give them an easy layup.
I feel like this may be an indication of the tone that movie might be taking. Again, though, it's like, and as I always say, it's way too early to know that. But personally, I wouldn't want an out-and-out comedy in a Black Adam movie. I might want that in the Shazam movie, but not Black Adam.
The thing about Undateable, though, is that it's kind of it is dark humor. Though it's like crafted for like a TV sitcom. It's pretty dark. If you really listen to the undertones, it gets pretty dark. So who knows? We might see something that's dark in humor, where it kind of takes little light stabs at a ha-ha, but...
Yeah, it's tricky with that character, though. I mean, there have been funny-ish moments with Black Adam, even in recent comics, but that character is a little bit kind of steeped in either tragedy of his own or also like tragedies that he causes. So I'd be interested to see how that movie will toe that line. Again, it's like way too early. I could be totally off base with that, but I don't love the idea of a funny Black Adam, but we'll see. I might end up loving it.
That's true.
And as somebody who's not fond of the beach, I'm curious as to why there's always like a fucking beach in the studio.
Because I live on a beach, basically.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Malibu's great at this time of year.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. Yeah, and I have
by
dogs.
sand.
Who,
Yeah.
one dog specifically loves sleeping on that.
I've noticed.
Yeah. And I got here 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, no time to clean up.
You're always harping on Richard, even though he like generously hosts us week after week.
I know. It's so great that he flies us down here to his place in Malibu, too. It's awesome.
Weekly.
It's just too bad. I'm never here long enough to get a tan, you know?
Yeah.
It's always at night when we record.
Soothing ocean noises. Yar, matey.
That's soothing. None of the noises that you guys made were soothing to me at all.
It's a Simpsons reference.
You are a Simpson reference.
Ayo.
Supergirl Jessie Rath cast as Legion's Brainiac 5.
Yeah. So Supergirl last season had Mon-El as a recurring character.
Not Mono.
Oh, damn it, you got to it first. Ugh.
Mon-El, who is famously a member of the Legion of Superheroes in the comics. He wasn't, I don't think, in the context of the show, but we know that the Legion exists because we've seen a Legion flight ring in the Fortress of Solitude in that show. So now, Brainiac 5, who is also a member of that 30th century team of superheroes. He's a descendant of the villain Brainiac from like the modern era.
I really like his song ABC, and
Yeah, the Brainiac Jackson 5.
yeah,
Brainiacs and 5. Got there.
Gross.
But yeah, so they've cast Jessie Rath, who, again, because I'm super disconnected from pop culture, I guess, I don't know what else he's been in. But,
oh man,
yeah.
he sure is a guy.
The internet firestorm is that he's like a visible minority, but in the comics, Brainiac 5 is green. So if you're complaining about it, you like it's fine. It's like the same kind of thing with when they cast Anna Diop as Starfire, and everyone was like, "You cast a black actress? Be like, she's orange in the comics, man. Like it doesn't matter." Like.
Okay, that's hilarious. No, Jesse Rath really hasn't been in much. He was in that terrible Assassin's Creed Lineage movie. He was in like a bunch of that Defiance TV show, which had so much potential.
Oh yeah, okay.
Unfortunate.
But yeah, so at any rate, look forward to seeing Brainiac 5 show up in Supergirl. This might be an indication that we're building to seeing more of the Legion in that show, which means time travel.
Oh,
So.
We've had some jumping to different worlds, so...
Yep, yeah, and the Flash has done some time travel, but this might be Supergirl's kind of in.
Has Supergirl been to Flash's world, or is she...
Yes.
Oh.
Last season for the Invasion crossover.
Yeah.
They all fought the Dominators, yeah.
Nice.
Justice League imprisoned in nightmare Batcaves.
Yeah, so this is the latest chapter of DC Metal, which is...
DC Metal!
Thank you. It's the invasion of the Dark Knights of the Dark Multiverse. The Dark Multiverse is this realm of worlds that aren't meant to survive. They're kind of like malformed, kind of broken worlds. And 7 alternate versions of Batman, each fused with the powers of a different Justice Leaguer, have now invaded Prime Earth. And in... now those Batmen have trapped other Justice Leaguers in, these nightmare bat caves where basically each one of them is going to go head to head with their like Dark Multiverse Batman counterpart. So, the Flash is going to be pitted against the Red Death from Earth, -52. Green Lantern will have to go up against the Dawnbreaker from Earth -30.
They're really all the metal guys are negative planets.
Yeah, they're like Earth, like minus Earth.
Oh my god!
Because the Dark Multiverse is like underneath the multiverse.
It's like the
upside down.
What's that from?
Fuck you! You know what it is.
You can make that argument a little bit because there are sort of connections between what number Earth they're from. So like Earth 11 in the main continuity is the gender swapped Earth, and Earth -11 of the Dark Multiverse is where a female like Bryce Wayne gets surgically altered to be Atlantean so that she can wage war and defeat Atlantis. So that's the quote unquote Batman with Aquaman powers. But at any rate, yeah, they're trapped in these nightmare Batcaves. This series is crazy, and it's so much fun to read. And there are like one-shots that explore the origins of all of these like twisted Batmen. And it's...
Can you explain what a one-shot is to Colin?
Oh yeah, you know how you kind of complain every once in a while that like the story isn't like contained? A one-shot is like a single issue with a story that begins and ends within that issue.
I like that.
And usually a one-shot, it ties into like a bigger story. So like Metal I'm reading, as it comes out, like month to month. So I get like issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, and that story keeps going. And then these one-shots are tied in because it involves characters involved in it, but they're not part of like the main narrative necessarily. So, yeah.
I like it when you only have one shot.
One opportunity. Mom spaghetti.
The end. That's all there is to it.
Nailed it.
So this week's theme is alternate timelines. If I could turn back time, baby, boom, I could find a way. Yeah, that's what I thought. Shut the fuck up. Parallel Earths and possible futures.
That's right. We thought it would be kind of fun to sort of explore some what ifs. Some of those what ifs are, like you said, parallel Earths. Elsewhere in the multiverse where something happens.
Elseworlds.
Elseworlds, alternate timelines that no longer exist. And yeah, like Colin said, possible futures. So we've got lots of kind of wild what if questions that I'm going to attempt to sift through.
There's some big stuff in here.
There is some very big stuff.
There's some heavy questions.
I know, I'm excited.
We have probably the weirdest, coolest fan base on the planet. You guys every week come up with some of the most incredible questions.
Oh, I know. I love it.
I'm just so
This
happy.
is why I come into work in the morning.
Wait, will you do this all day?
Yeah. I've been waiting for you guys for hours.
Just sliding questions across the newsroom desk.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we're gonna start off in Twitter land.
A bogle.
We got Chad Bokelman. The good part of me wants to talk Superman, last son of Earth, but the evil part wins. So do the best you can to explain Hypertime. That's what I fucking
Explain ...
thought.
Hypertime. So, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit because this does take some explaining. So,
I'm just going to check my Instagram for a bit.
the multiverse, the multiverse is the idea that every possible version of events or people exists somewhere. So some Earths are very similar to each other. It might just be that, like, I put a different shirt on in the morning. Other Earths are totally different. I'm never born, like, there's been 4 world wars or, like, whatever. In Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 80s, the Anti-Monitor destroyed the infinite Earths. And the 5 Earths that kind of survived near the end got merged into one single reality, one single continuity. So all of those parallel worlds were destroyed. All of those other histories, those like slight variations of like what could have been, were all eradicated. And that was DC Comics trying to streamline their continuity and trying to correct some issues, which of course didn't work, but that was what the attempt was. And then from that point on, there was one Earth and one history. What does that mean, though, if you're a writer and you want to explore the idea of what if? You kind of can't anymore, because as soon as you do that, you have to have another Earth for that. You can't have a what if in one history. Hypertime was this thing that he who must not be named came up with.
Morrison!
Precisely. As a way to basically allow writers to tap into those what if stories without completely contradicting the idea that there was only one Earth. So if we think of like the multiverse theory as being like there are different like physical spaces that exist on like higher or lower planes of existence, or different like vibrational frequencies. They're like physical spaces. Hypertime is like, they describe it kind of like a river. There is only one Earth, and that's the main stream of the river. But every once in a while something might branch off, and it could stay close to the river. It could be like just a small deviation, or it could go really far away and then, curve its way back. So the idea is that there is still just one history, but there are these little branching deviations that you could theoretically access, but not through any sort of like multiversal space, but through, hyper time. From a science perspective, you're basically still describing multiple Earths. But in comics, it's meant to be something different entirely. And so what Hypertime allowed you to do was, if you were from one of those branches and then you spent too much time in another branch, you would start like seeing the history of that, or like you would kind of merge with that branch of Hypertime. And so that was the way to allow for some of those what if stories. It was generally and like basically completely disavowed by DC in 2005 when they did Infinite Crisis, because in that event, Alexander Luthor, previously of the pre-Crisis Earth 3, recreated the multiverse. There were 52 worlds at that point. So then Hypertime wasn't necessary anymore. But then every once in a while, the couple of writers who were like loyal to Hypertime, so like Morrison and like Wade, basically, would reference it offhand. It's even been referenced as recently as, I think, Flash number 22, which was just earlier this year. Barry and Bruce are like running to the past, and Barry references Hypertime. What it means?
He has a little flashback.
Nice. What Hypertime means in like the current continuity, where there is like a multiverse and there are actually multiple multiverses, is that Hypertime allows realities which have been destroyed or forgotten to resurface, because at some point they were part of that stream. Again, the science of that is very dubious, if not wholly crack. But from a storytelling perspective, it was basically like a narrative way to allow writers to play around with characters, do things that weren't going to be allowed to be canon, basically, in a world where there was only supposed to be one history. If you're confused by that, listening at home, join the club. All of us are. Hypertime is like one of those things that, like, there's kind of a reason it didn't catch on. Like, not many writers really bought into it, which is why it was really only Morrison and Wade that kind of used it. Yeah, it's one of those things that it just wasn't as clearly different to a multiverse as I think they wanted it to be. So it got confusing in that context. But it does get referenced every once in a while, sometimes in like time travel stories. Like Hypertime's been referenced in the context of like Wave Rider and Booster Gold. It's been referenced, like I said, with the Flash. And I imagine that the notion of Hypertime will resurface again in the context of Doomsday Clock, where we're talking about Dr. Manhattan manipulating like reality, like removing pieces of history from the DC universe. I'm almost certain that Hypertime will get a nod in there, because we know that there are multiple Earths, but like what happened to the missing pieces of their reality? Mm-hmm. That's probably Hypertime related. So
yes, Hypertime, the fits that my doctor prescribed Ritalin for.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Hey, Morrison. So, Talking Superman on Twitter asks, of the 52 Earths on the map, which do you like to see as a solo series?
Ooh, is that a new Chris Hardwick after show for Smallville? Talking Superman?
I mean, that would literally be it. Or it'd be called like Talkville or something.
I was just going to say, yeah, Talkville.
Yeah.
Smockville.
At Nerdist, if you're listening, if you want to do a show about
a TV show that's been off
the air for over a decade, yeah, there you go. You can have that.
We'll take the rights.
So, the 52 Earths of the local multiverse, which would I want to see like an ongoing series of? Yeah, like there's not just like comic books of the goings on of those Earths. You see them every once in a while in like those big events where people are traveling between Earths, but otherwise you kind of don't know what's happening. And there are lots of really interesting ones, and it would be really cool to kind of peer in and like actually follow their adventures. But which one would I want to see? Actually, I do have an answer to this. There used to be an ongoing series of Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew. That's Earth 26. I think that would be great to bring back, because that's just a ton of fun.
Didn't you have a Dr. Carrot or Mr. Carrot card in that DC booklet?
Captain Carrot?
Captain Carrot?
I didn't.
No, but
We have talked about
one of
it
the
before.
Vaniers did ask about Captain Carrot.
We
at some
have
point.
talked about Captain Carrot in the past because that's that cartoon Earth of anthropomorphic animals, and they've got like cartoon physics powers and
Was
things
it
like
Stacey
that.
Vanier?
I think it was Mallory.
Mallory Vanier. The Vaniers.
Yeah.
The Vaniers. Asking
so-
questions, they're the Vaniers.
There's a precedent already that there are stories on that Earth. There was an ongoing comic book series with that. So I would love to see that again. I think that would be fun. And I think I mentioned this on Twitter, actually talking Superman, that I would love to see an ongoing on Earth 23. Earth 23 is the home of Calvin Ellis, aka Kal-El, aka President Superman, who was modeled after Barack Obama. And that Earth...
Barack Obama is a Superman.
Well, that was the inspiration for this character. He's a black Superman whose like day job is being the president of the United States.
Yep, that adds up.
But he's a very kind of pure-hearted, kind version of Superman. And what's great about that one, if you were to do that as an ongoing, is that Superman is also the leader of Justice Incarnate, which is like a multiversal Justice League, where it's like heroes from all, like a bunch of the different Earths of the multiverse are part of Justice Incarnate. So if you had an Earth 23 ongoing, every once in a while, it would be reasonable to then follow President Superman like into the heart of the
President
multiverse.
Superman.
Hey, at Barack Obama, if you'd like to, I don't know, do something in your post-presidency days, maybe we can line this up for a film.
Well, do you know what? Like,
That'd be really neat, I think.
oh, sorry, I thought you were going to say, why don't you like become Superman and fight crime?
Well, there's that, but he's already doing that in his own weird little way.
You know, yeah, okay, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that.
His first target,
We know.
45.
Yep. So I think one of those two, Earth 26 or Earth 23, if I wanted to throw a really weird one out there, I think I might get the Earth designation wrong on this, but I believe Earth 37 is like the pirate waterworld Earth, where Batman is a sea captain. And it's like 19th century Waterworld, basically.
Oh,
I would kind of love that.
right there.
Yeah, so instead of it being like a Mad Max like level technology, it's like sail ships. It would be like
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it's like Pirates of the Caribbean but superheroes, and there's only water. Like that would be
That's fucking rad.
yeah. So maybe I think that's Earth 37. I'd be down for that. That's Captain Leatherwing. That's the version of Batman from that Earth.
Oh, I feel like I've seen imagery of that before.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you, other than it just showing up in like the directory of the multiverse, I don't know that we've ever actually really seen like solid stories from that Earth. So talking Superman, I hope that's answered your question.
You're a
Earth
millennial,
23,
too.
Earth 26, Earth 37.
Enjoy your burrito.
Oh my god. Yeah, I know guac is extra. Grant Richter asks, perhaps a discussion of how many elements the alternative future of Kingdom Come became canon in the main DCU, especially under Jeff Johns.
So I think when Kingdom Come was
Also
written,
known as John Jones.
yeah. When Kingdom Come was written, I think Infinite Crisis hadn't happened yet, which means that it was part of Hypertime. It was a world.
Hypertime!
It was a world where Superman was becoming disheartened with the violence of the younger generation of heroes. Heroes that would basically kill villains. They would like stoop to their level. And he kind of goes into exile for like 10 years. And then this group of violent superheroes causes a nuclear explosion that basically like wipes out Kansas, and it enrages Superman so much that he basically kind of goes to war with them, with his kind of group of superheroes.
I don't think we're in Kansas.
And that war so threatens to ravage the Earth that Superman is kind of shaken out of it, and then finally like actually saves the day. But it's like a really like grim kind of look at the difference between like the generations and the idea of taking the easy route of like killing villains and things like that. So, and that world, when the multiverse was reborn, became Earth 22. It still exists. It's part of the multiverse. But But in the Prime continuity, during Jeff Johns' run on Justice Society, the Superman from Earth 22 ended up on Prime Earth. And seeing that it was like earlier in time, because that Superman is like older. He's, like in his 50s or 60s or something like that. But seeing that he had kind of ended up back in time a little bit.
He's retired man.
Yeah. Super tired man.
That's good. Yeah.
He decides that he's going to like head off this cataclysm at the past, or at the past rather. So he basically goes out of his way to prevent the events of Kingdom Come from happening on Prime Earth. And then so him being there makes that stuff canon. It makes that concrete, that it's something that happened and now it's tied to the main continuity. But then also within that, they end up fighting Gog, who's an old god of the first world, and they fight Magog as well, who is basically like the instigator of that event in Kingdom Come.
I heard Magog is really big.
Magog.
Well, maybe
Magog.
Maybe compared to other people's
What? Hey,
who are much,
Colin,
much,
do you want to see Magog?
much, much, much smaller than average. That's it. That's really it. Oh wow, impressive.
I've had my eyes closed this whole time because I'm just shaking my head.
Stop imagining things, pervert.
Yeah, stop thinking about Magog.
It's worse than looking.
I'm just imagining being anywhere else.
You'd rather be on Magog?
But yeah, so
you
Gog and Magog and the Earth 22 Superman being in that story and existing there, and like that, that makes those things canon, because Gog, because he's an old god of the first world, he's multiversal. He too ends up on like the main continuity Earth, from elsewhere in the multiverse. So that is what ties it. That's what makes it like actual concrete and canon, and part of the history of the DC multiverse is, and not just like an imagined story, is that it actually took place on another Earth, and then those characters made their way to the Prime continuity.
Hey, Richard. Magog is universal. Is yours multiversal as well?
Magog is infinite.
Gross. So let's go to Reddit, where everything is happy and no one is mad.
That's right.
Nerdcast says DC has had some really good Elseworld titles, but they've pretty much been absent the last few years. Should DC revert to using Elseworld titles? And also, what are your top 5 Elseworld books?
Right. So that period of time that I talked about, where there was only meant to be one continuity,
There can only be one.
before Hypertime, what writers would do if they wanted to
Hypertime Lander.
if they wanted to do a what if story, is they would put it under this imprint that was called Elseworlds. So that basically was saying like, this isn't a parallel Earth. It's just like a what if. We're just writing it, but like it doesn't really exist. Like really exist, like in the context of the fiction anyway.
Because the rest of this stuff's super real, you guys.
They're just like a bunch of kids at a slumber party, like, hey, you ever like wonder, like, what if? Oh.
Well, I can tell you what some of these Elseworlds were. Some of them are actually kind of cool. One of them is called In Darkest Night, and in that one, Batman gets a Green Lantern ring. So he's Green Lantern.
Oh, that's a really good
There's
title.
one called Gotham by Gaslight, where it takes place in the
Good Batman titles, man.
takes place in the 19th century, and it's Batman versus Jack the Ripper.
I've
Cool.
seen this. So good.
Actually, that's coming out as an animated movie next year.
Fucking rad.
That was one of them.
Wait, who wins?
Well, Batman.
Well, okay, I had to ask. I don't know.
Yeah. So some of these things that are now like worlds of the multiverse began as Elseworlds. The reason that you haven't seen Elseworlds for the last few years is because of that. They don't need that Elseworlds imprint anymore. It's now just like, here's a story on Earth 19. This is like the Gaslight Batman. And then there you go. So that's why you haven't seen the term Elseworlds basically, I would say since 2005. Because it's not necessary anymore. Those are worlds that are actually part of the canon of DC now. They take place on a parallel Earth, so it's not the Prime continuity. But theoretically, any of those characters that have the ability to move like through the bleed and into one or the to a different
bleed
multiversal world, any of them could end up in that like Victorian Gotham, or they could end up in, you know, like 19th century Waterworld pirate Batman's world, or any of those places.
So wait, hold on. 19th century Batman, does he have all his gizmos and gadgets? Are people freaking out about cars that basically are spewing fire out of the back end of them that aren't horses and
it's like a
carriages?
steampunk kind of world. So like some
Alfred sounds exactly the same.
So some of yeah, he would. Some of the other like characters in that world, like the Flash of that world, whereas, you know, like how the people that actually had like cars back in the day would dress with like the gloves and the goggles and like those like pants that kind of balloon out at the hips and then like, go into your boots.
MC Hammer is the only person who drove a car.
But you know that look, right? That I'm talking about. That guy, that's how the Flash dresses, and he wears a scarf, and he's called the Accelerated Man. It's
not the Joker, it's the Town Fool.
No,
The Jester.
no, he's not called the Town Fool, although that would be a really good name for him.
Right?
Actually, Accelerated Man has been on The Flash, like on the TV show. You got one glimpse of the Accelerated Man in an episode last season where you see Earth 19. It's kind of neat.
I would love for there to be a TV show like in like that universe.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. How is this fair that your ideas are good for something like that, but I can't just have Superman in an office fixing a photocopier?
Because he didn't say,
I'm not
I want
justifying-
to see a guy just like setting type in like a, you know, like a newspaper.
Oh, this is an old model.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't fix this.
All right, I'll be back in half an hour.
I'm not authorized to fix this.
He's going through puberty at the same time.
My top 5 Elseworlds.
Hey, I'm Superman.
Top 5 Elseworld titles is tricky. In no particular order. 2 of the ones that I've already mentioned. In Darkest Night and Gotham by Gaslight. I would count Superman Red Sun. That's the one where Superman, instead of crash landing in Kansas as a baby, crash lands in Soviet-occupied Czechoslovakia and is raised as part of the Soviet Union. That's one of them.
In Soviet Russia, man bats you.
Sure. Batman's like a freedom fighter in that one. He's like a Russian freedom fighter. I would say Kingdom Come, I would count among those. And I need one more, huh? Oh, Batman Red Rain, where he becomes a vampire. And that's also a current Earth of the multiverse. I think that's Earth 42 is the vampire world. Yeah, I think those are the ones. Often they're Batman stories because people want Batman and Batman, because of like the detective-y thing and because of like just his aesthetic, lends itself to some of those like other time kind of things pretty well, like the 19th century or like something like Dracula or like I think. Well, I mean, Dracula obviously lends itself to Batman because he's Batman, but so a lot of those stories involve him. But I would definitely put Red Rain in there too.
Do you think Batman's Team Jacob or Team Edward?
Ooh, Edward, because he's
on account of vampires,
brooding and dark.
On account of bats.
Do you think that the Gaslight Batman is a lot of just like him going to like his villains like minions and like being like, you know, I don't really know about this guy. I don't think he's really good.
That's not what gaslighting is.
Well, it's yeah, it's a form of gaslighting.
Is it?
No. Yeah.
Isn't gaslighting where you like constantly like berate and demean, and then you turn it around and you act really nice, so then you confuse people like emotionally?
Well,
isn't that what gaslighting is?
Gaslighting actually originally, like the person who created it, was a psychologist, I believe, and he did this to his wife over a period of like months or a year.
Oh, really?
He would slowly turn down the actual gas-lit lamp that they had in their living room,
making
the room darker and darker and darker to the point where it was almost turned right off, and then he turned it all the way up.
Right.
In one of his last experiments with her, essentially making her think that she had gone entirely insane.
Right. So that's the idea. So when you're being emotionally manipulative,
exactly,
you're making the person being manipulated think that they're the one that's imagining it. That's the gaslighting.
That's
what
you're doing to my wife. Okay.
That's terrible.
I was wondering what that was called.
Every day I'm like, God, this food gets worse and worse and worse, and I'm cooking it.
I do all the cooking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you do.
Oh no.
Well, good question, Reddit. Thanks for being nice. It was a good one.
We did it.
Yeah, Reddit. Have high.
We did it.
Feels.
We did it. Hey, we did it.
Okay, so now we're gonna have an email.
Emails.
Let's go.
We did get some good emails this time.
We did get some good emails.
Eat in the mail and don't eat mail.
So David Jacobs.
I feel like that's a typo. I feel like he accidentally put his Z on the end.
That's okay. Jacobs is.
Is that how it's actually spelled?
It's your
Jacobs
email.
Well, I don't know.
What if Batman's real father is Alfred and not Thomas Wayne?
How is this coming up again?
Love this.
How is this coming up again?
I love this.
Yeah, what
It
if?
totally makes sense.
Okay, so the first time that this question came up, I think I said that I had researched as much as I could, and I was pretty sure that I couldn't find any canon version where Alfred...
Why else would a creepy old English man hang out with some dude his whole life?
Just wait, let me finish. I found no canon version where Alfred was in fact Bruce Wayne's biological father. But because this is the What If episode, let's play the game. It doesn't matter if it's canon or not. What if Batman's real father is Alfred Pennyworth and not Thomas Wayne? What does that then do
to the relationship?
Batman and to the relationship? Specifically, what does it do when
he finds out? Yeah.
Because Alfred's already assumed the father figure role. If we imagine that Alfred has kept this quiet because, you know, the Waynes are a powerful family or whatever.
I wouldn't say a father figure role. I think it's kind of like that distant uncle who's just kind of cold with him.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's
in
not?
the comics,
It's creepy?
He's his father, basically.
Oh, gross.
Like, I mean, like in the way that in the way that he cares for him, he raises him and everything. I mean, it's a little weird because they still have like the employer-employee relationship too. But Alfred
and yet share a bed.
But Alfred is. I'm gonna go past that. But Alfred is like Batman's father figure.
Yeah, his
so what
positive
happens,
male role model.
Batman's like whole crusade is basically based on the idea that
crusade.
Both of his parents are murdered. So if Batman finds out that that not only is his crusade basically based on a lie, because not both of his parents have been murdered, but also that the one person in whom he placed like trust and actual like human like compassion growing up is the one person who's been like constantly deceiving him and basically like leading him down this path of living like effectively like a miserable life because he's on this constant quest for vengeance. Like that's a huge like betrayal.
The
I would see
ultimate
that
gaslight.
Oh my god!
I would see that going horribly. Actually,
That sounds like a good story.
At least in the short term, like maybe
A movie even.
like maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'd get over it, but I see that going really poorly. I think it would only not go poorly if right after the Waynes got killed, Alfred was like, "I know this isn't the best time, Master Wayne, but I'm your real father."
But I boinked your
But I boinked your mom.
Now hand me a funny branca.
Hand me a funny prank.
Oh, I'm gonna teach you how to make all this.
Why did I make it the Michael Caine one?
That's your go-to. No, okay. Can I jump
yeah,
in here? Oh,
do
okay,
it.
good. So,
you know how I bonked your mother? I gave her a funny branca.
I like to think if that is the case, if Alfred is actually Bruce Wayne's father,
Yeah.
it's only by a biological necessity. So, like Thomas Wayne wasn't capable of fathering a child, and
You
so,
think this is like part of his like loyalty to the Waynes, like his duty
And
to the Waynes?
So though he is his biological father, Thomas is his father.
Okay, so what you're saying is that like because the Waynes are this rich and powerful family, like they need like an heir so that there's somewhere for that like.
Am I breaking your brain a little bit here?
Well,
Have you ever thought about this?
I've never thought. Well, no, because it hasn't actually like happened in the comics. That's a really interesting.
Yeah, suck a
story.
dick, Morrison. I'm coming for you. Story time now.
I gave her the zip and the zop and the boopity bop.
Oh no!
Why, man?
Oh no! Oh no! All I'm saying is like you've never like thought it to a real world.
No, I really like that actually. There's like lots of opportunities.
There's a lot of
good-
depth to it as well.
There's a lot
DC
of,
executives, I know you're listening.
yeah.
And I totally want credit for that shit. Colin Close, what up?
That's right. Yeah, Colin, I think of the two of us, you came up with yeah, that's right.
Slash Colin Close.
You came up with the idea I like better.
Nice.
Yeah. So there
And
you
it
go.
is Jacobs with his
You're welcome,
Oh, okay.
David Jacobs. Is
David Jacobs is.
yeah, but at the same time, he was just like, what if Alfred was his dad, though?
Don't make that voice for them.
Sorry, David Jacobs is. I'm curious now, Jacob, if you could email us,
Which he already did.
and let us know. Like if we
What his voice sounds like?
fucked this up. No, the last name thing.
No, it's
Is
written
it-
in his email.
No,
you-
is it like
I
it's
mean
like
the
a poll-
pronunciation.
Like it's
probably just Jacobs.
Yes.
I can't imagine that the Z is pronounced.
Okay, so let's move along before
Sure.
I make more of an ass of myself.
Let's do it.
David Rossi says,
Oh.
in past years, it feels like DC has gone to great lengths to whittle their multiverse down from infinite to finite. With the recent introduction of Scott Schneider's Dark Metal Realities, the impending reveal of the Watchmen universe, and recent books like Green Lantern / Star Trek, or DC / Looney Tunes, Morrison's map of the multiverse is already starting to feel somewhat obsolete. Do you, 1, think that loosening the cap to the multiversal genie's bottle invites the type of thick, muddled continuity issues DC has been trying to stem and clean up? 2, do you think there was ever a continuity problem and a cap to the multiverse is the answer?
Well, goddamn, Dave.
That is a great question. Set of questions.
And of course, he throws in Trek there. I saw that.
He's going
Yes.
so in depth.
So I'll come right out and say it that
You're going to come out tonight?
it's happening.
Oh, wow.
Morrison's map of the multiverse is not obsolete because even in the multiversity, it's referred to as the map of the local multiverse. And in Multiversity, we know that the Empty Hand had destroyed Multiverse 2, so we know that there are other multiverses. And then also on an unrelated but interconnected story, during Convergence, some of the pre-crisis and post-crisis heroes and villains were sent back to the original crisis and stopped the destruction of the infinite Earths. So, what we're left with now is a local multiverse, which looks like it's the 52 worlds. It's a finite number, like we saw after Infinite Crisis. Their histories have sort of been blended with their pre- and post-crisis versions. So some things have happened and some haven't. But then beyond that multiverse, there are infinite multiverses, not all of whom have to have the same number of worlds in them. There could be a multiverse with infinite Earths. There could be a multiverse with 3 Earths. So actually, Grant Morrison's multiverse serves to put a little bit of context to the idea of a multiverse, because the idea of just infinite worlds, everything is possible, just to use that as the thing that people are traveling in. That's hard to visualize. It's
Kind of Rick and Morty-ish.
It's easier to visualize, we know there are this many Earths, I'm going to this one now. But outside of that, if you had the ability to, punch out of your multiverse, you could go to one of these other ones. Maybe there's a multiverse that's where all of the Marvel stories take place. Actual Marvel stories, not the pastiche worlds of Earth 7 and 8 in Multiverse 1. So, I'll answer the first question by saying, I don't think loosening the cap invites continuity issues. I mean, continuity issues will happen, but loosening the cap is what lets you tell interesting stories. That's where we get this whole dark multiverse from. This DC Metal thing, the dark multiverse has never been referenced and never shown up before this. This is a brand new creation. These negative worlds, Earth minus 52 and Earth minus 11 and things like that. That's brand new. And you get to do that when you live in a reality that has multiple multiverses. So it lets you do some interesting storytelling, and you can, what happens on a world where Batman knows that Barry can change the past and demands that he gives him access to the Speed Force. Well, that's where you get the Red Death, where he straps him to the front of the Batmobile and literally punches his way or drives his way into the Speed Force to steal it from him. Question number 2 was, do you think there was ever a continuity problem? and that a capture the multiverse is the answer. There's always a continuity problem. Like literally every time someone writes a comic book, there's a continuity problem. They might not know it yet. Maybe they're sowing the seeds of it and they don't realize it. But almost every issue of a comic book, sooner or later, is tied to a continuity issue. I don't think it's necessary to cap the multiverse to solve that. But what those big events do, where they do reality altering things, is it will at least course correct or clean up the main storyline. You're never going to completely extinguish it because there's always that world out there where the thing happened. But in terms of like just following your main story, when you pick up Batman every month or things like that, those types of stories where they say like, this is the reality now, that can help get you back on track and back on board. Those things like DC Looney Tunes and Green Lantern Star Trek aren't on worlds of the DC, they aren't in Multiverse 1, which is the main multiverse. But because we know there are multiple ones, they exist somewhere. And they would be accessible. The Watchmen Earth, so far, has not had a designation within Multiverse 1. It's likely from outside the multiverse. But we know it exists, and very tangibly because of the events leading up to and including Rebirth and Doomsday Clock. Yeah. I think that's my answer to that.
I kind of want to see a Space Jam movie with that, the Looney Tunes playing DC heroes.
Ooh. I like that.
Or even DC villains would be
You
cool.
could bring back Shaquille O'Neal as Steel.
No. Actually, you know what? No. The villains. You could have, the Joker. You could have Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Catwoman, obviously.
You could have Giganta. She'd be good at basketball.
I was thinking trying to match up the characters that are in the first Space Jam. So you'd have Lola Bunny would be opposite someone like Catwoman. You can try to match them up like that. It'd be kind of neat.
Right. Yeah, I would see that.
Playing basketball. We're playing basketball.
Well,
Fuck you guys.
We're going to go over to Facebook now. Oh, God.
Old Gil. Old Gil.
Gil.
Josh Gill.
Gil likes to write the long questions.
Oh, my God. There's so many paths to walk down on this one.
Let's have it.
Okay, so how do you want this? Do you want it all just all at the same time?
Just give it to him all.
You want it raw or you want to break it down?
I'll take it all.
Oh, wow. You dirty
Give it to
bird.
him all at once.
Oh,
All right, open up.
Just let me get my leg up here. All right. Sorry.
Stop it. Just stop
the one time I play along.
Yeah, no.
You're disgusting.
You were the only one playing.
Yeah, that's true.
With all the possible futures that have been prevented or altered due to time travel, how is the Legion of Superheroes still unchanged? Is the Legion's future the only inevitable future of the DCU? What has been your favorite multiverse altering event? What's your favorite alternate timeline, parallel Earth, possible future? Are there any parallel Earths or alternative timelines that you wish would be explored more? What, in your opinion, are the most overused or exhausted? Well, so many questions. I feel overused and exhausted. Sorry, Josh.
Well,
Doctor's about to.
Hey-oh. He played along now, too.
I can do it.
Yeah, you can.
I'll put my back into it. So the first...
Put your ass into it.
I'll do the first questions.
My neck. My back.
So with all the possible futures that have been prevented, how is the Legion of Superheroes unchanged? The answer is they aren't always unchanged. There are, if you actually go in to try and learn the history of the Legion of Superheroes, which I think I mentioned on a previous episode, really early on, that if you wanted to jump in, there's nothing wrong with quote unquote cheating a little bit. Pick up a comic book and read it, and then go to the DC wiki and look up the team and read a little bit about the history, and then you can kind of piece some things together. If you ever go to the DC wiki or Comic Find or something like that and look up the Legion of Superheroes, it's broken down into a few different things. There's the Legion of Earth 247. There's the 3-boot Legion. There's the main pre-crisis Legion. And we talked about this in a previous episode too. They got trapped in like a pocket dimension. Their history was like trapped by the Time Trapper for a little bit. There have been different versions of the Legion. And often, as is the case with time travel stories, what ends up happening is that there's this idea that like time is like wet concrete. You can make some changes to it, but eventually it'll set. So if you don't change them back, then that becomes the history. So with the Legion, there's this element of like some things stay relatively solid. Other things get changed, but eventually they kind of fold in and become part of the new Legion history. So I think the outward appearance maybe is that the Legion endures, but there have been multiple changes caused by like Zero Hour and Crisis and the New 52 and like all Final Crisis and all sorts of things that have affected the Legion of Superheroes. And there are versions of the future without the Legion of Superheroes. There's a book called Justice League 3000, which also takes place in the 31st century, much like the Legion. And
I love that Hey Ya song, by the way.
Yeah. That was really good. I didn't want to like that one. I really like that.
All right.
Okay, now ladies. So in that world, there is no Legion of Superheroes, but there is this like organization that basically like takes the DNA of the 21st century Justice League and basically like overwrites it onto humans in the 31st century to make like close approximations, but not fully real versions of the Justice League. So they make like a Superman without the humility. So he's just like this kind of like super strong, boisterous guy that's like, I got this. Like, they make a Batman without like the grief. So he's just like a rich playboy who punches criminals. And that Justice League...
That guy sounds like a lot of fun at parties.
Yeah. And that Justice League, they hop world to world. There's no Legion in that future. It's just this like weird pseudo versions of the Justice League we know. So like that's a possible future. It's never really been made concrete where that fits in the actual timeline. There's a hint because the pre-Flashpoint Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. So it's pre-Infinite like Crisis because Blue Beetle is alive. They end up in that future. So does this still take place in that timeline or a timeline of that pre-Infinite Crisis world? So then where in those like multiple multiverses does that Earth take place in? So that's like an actual bit of canon, but we just don't know where it sits in terms of like the structure of space or time. But that's a version where the Legion doesn't exist at all. So what happened there? Something changed in that timeline, at least, to basically either wipe them out or stop them from becoming a team. What has been my favorite multiverse altering event? I think I've said it before. It's Infinite Crisis. It's where they brought the multiverse back. Because I love that idea of like world hopping and things like that. And Infinite Crisis allowed that to happen again. Plus, it's just a great story that really ties into the first Crisis event. And it's very well told, extremely well drawn. And not too, I mean, these kind of things can get very like dense with the quote unquote science and things like that. But that Infinite Crisis is actually something you can follow. And I appreciate that.
That's a neat phrase. Dense science.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but you know what I mean,
Yeah,
right? Especially
yeah.
because it's all like pseudo, like
It gets a little overwhelming.
yeah, it totally can. And like there are ones that I still don't like. Final Crisis, I'm like still working my way through Final Crisis, trying to understand it. But Infinite Crisis is actually like accessible and interesting and involves multiple Earths. What's my favorite alternate timeline? I liked Flashpoint. I thought Flashpoint was interesting because that's not a parallel Earth. That was Barry changing the past and it like fucked up the present and he had to go back and rechange the past to fix it. I liked Flashpoint. There's, Ooh, what other alternate timeline? No, you know what? It might be Flashpoint. I know that's super recent, but like I thought it was an interesting story. I liked the idea that when Barry goes back in time, he doesn't just necessarily affect things that happen after he makes a change, but they called it like a time boom. It's like a sonic boom. So he goes back to X moment. Boom. Yeah, X moment in time and changes something, and then that ripples out in all directions in time. So it changed things that happened even before his mother was saved. And it changed things after as well. So like it completely rewrote the history. I think that was an interesting idea, and I like that that's in there. I think possible future. I wanted my favorite possible future to be Future's End, which was this sort of like Rise of the Machines kind of story where Brother Eye basically infects, and like it's kind of like got this body horror thing where when Brother Eye, this sentient satellite, kind of infects the heroes, then like he kind of like busts out of their skin, so they're all these kind of like deformed, like pseudo cyborg creatures.
Was that in that Morrison thing you gave me?
Oh,
No, it wasn't.
I'm yelling Morrison.
What were those? Yeah, your voice is getting a little bit hoarse.
I know what you're.
Horses on.
Horses.
I know what you're talking about, but those were different. You're talking about. Are you talking about the egg thing
No,
from Ultra Comics?
No, like how a lot of the superheroes are like deformed and shit.
Oh yeah, so it's
that a
it's
part of
not
that, or
that,
no?
but it looked similar.
Okay.
Like aesthetic wise, it was similar, but they're not the same thing. But yeah, it's that idea, and I wanted that one to be really good. It's like a version of the future where Batman's satellite Brother Eye that he creates to basically spy on superhumans goes rogue and like takes over the world and like destroy and like basically kills everyone. And then Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, has to go back in time to stop it. That was the story they used to make Terry McGinnis part of the main continuity. And that was cool, but that whole like series didn't end up being very good, which I found kind of upsetting. And you didn't spend very much time in that possible future. So much of it was in this like, it was like 5 years in the future, but not the full like 30 years in the future. So I didn't really dig that one as much as I wanted to, but I think I like the possible future, or maybe it counts as like the future of a JLA 1 million. That's the one that takes place in the 853rd century, and the galaxy is protected by Justice Legions, and like the main Superman has survived like in the sun for 15,000 years and shit like that.
Whoa.
It's pretty cool. I kind of like JLA 1 million. I think it's an interesting story, and it's in this like crazy extreme far future you could do anything with. I think that's the possible future that I like the most. What other questions do we have here? Are there any parallel Earths or alternate timelines that you wish would be explored more? What, in your opinion, are the most overused or exhausted? So I've mentioned a couple of these already. I wish we had seen
Batman, a lot of Batman.
There's always like too much Batman, yeah. I wish that the 30-year in the Future's End with Brother Eye and that had been explored more. I wish I saw more of how far that world had fallen.
Have they ever done any Elseworld Aquaman?
Yeah, I mean, like they're only in the context of like seeing the other Earth, though, like not necessarily as an Aquaman story.
Would you like there to be?
I would like there to be. That would be great. Do you know what's really upsetting is when the crime syndicate invaded from Earth 3, all the evil doppelgangers of the Justice League show up. You like Ultraman and Power Ring and Johnny Quick and all of this. And then right as they come through like the portal, the Sea King, Aquaman's doppelganger, comes through first, and he looks like so badass, and he's got the hook hand and stuff like that. And then he immediately drops dead.
Oh.
Like he didn't make it. Like he steps through and dies.
That's not fair.
And that gets really dark because then, like, on a side story, like, Deadman possesses the corpse and tries to, like, infiltrate, like, the crime syndicate. At any rate, I would have liked to see more of him, too. And then parallel Earths that I want to see more of, I think the same answer I would give to Talking Superman. President Superman, Earth 23. Captain Carrot, Earth 26. Yar Matey Batman from Earth 37.
Talking Superman will be back after these messages.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Oh my god.
Right?
So rad.
I hope that answered your questions, Josh.
That's
Gilly.
Josh got like a whole episode to himself there.
Well, the title of this episode is Josh.
Oh yeah, there it is. JB Boyd. Nobody knows who you are. We don't have a theme song for you yet. JB Boyd. What if one of the superwomen found themselves pregnant, then super children to help save the world?
Yeah. So
Dig it.
it's been proven that like powers and things like that are genetic. We talked about the metagene like whenever ago.
But does that count like with, I mean, this isn't a metagene, this is this is somebody from Krypton, right? Superwomen?
Well, it's not. It's not with a capital. I think JB means super in the general sense, like they have powers.
Super great.
Actually, I just finished a story in.
Like your mom.
She's a wonderful lady.
I've never met her, but I'm sure she's great.
She Wonder Lady? Not Wonder Woman. Just Wonder Lady.
Not after a night with you, my friend.
Yeah, just let me know when I can jump back in.
That's what she said.
God damn. So I just finished a story in Justice League where a possible future comes back to the past to try and stop their future from happening. And that future is populated by the children of Justice League members who have like
they're not into it at all. They're like, oh god, I don't even want to be here. This stupid meeting.
Well, but like Superman in this possible future, Superman and Wonder Woman have a son, and the Flash and Green Lantern, Jessica Cruz have kids, and some of them have like Green Lantern powers, and some of them have Speed Force powers, and Cyborg has a kid who is like even more like blended or integrated like man and machine.
Time out.
What?
How does a cyborg machine have a baby?
Because he's a cyborg. He still has human like components.
Mm-hmm.
Where it counts.
Well, sorry, that's not what I meant.
Components?
I wish I hadn't said that.
Yeah, you did.
At any rate,
cyborg in the streets.
What do you mean? At any rate, you can't just skim by this.
No, what I'm saying, I think they explain it. Some like he uses his DNA and merges it with some piece of technology.
Has a little oil spill.
You know what I mean?
But in this story, those children of the Justice League from a possible future show up.
And then there's the one superhero that had a kid with just a normal person. That kid's name is Todd. He's just there.
Todd
he
is
brings
the
donuts.
Yeah, Todd's the admin assistant for. Todd, can we get some coffee in here, please? We're trying to save the day, but we've been doing it for like 13 hours.
We're rather parched.
You know, my job's important too.
Yeah, no, Todd, I understand that, but like really, we need these coffees because we're trying to save the earth. So
okay, but like I got stuff going on too.
No. Like we brought you in because you had a good recommendation, and we know that you were really looking for work.
Do you know who my mother is?
Yeah, we do. She was great.
Super even, really.
You'll see when these papers are collated, everyone will be going, "Where's Todd? Someone help! Save us, Todd!" No, it's not going to happen.
That's right.
You like those files folded and properly put.
Actually, I prefer when you don't like fold the files. You put them in folders, but you don't have to actually fold the files. That actually makes them really difficult.
They go inside folders, therefore they need to be folded.
Oh, you know what? I think we're gonna have to part ways.
Folder.
That's fine, but I'm taking my stapler.
And scene. Lovely. So
we just crafted a film.
DCXX.
Hashtag Forever Todd.
So.
Hashtag Todd, yes.
Hypertime.
No, fuck you guys.
So that legacy storyline that did not feature Todd, sadly, that's an example of this. On the alternate Earth front, there are super people that have had kids whose power is kind of to be feared. Superwoman, who's like the Wonder Woman analog from Earth 3, the evil Earth. Her infant ended up being terrifyingly powerful / kind of
Voldemort.
Yeah. Yes, it was Voldemort. Moving on. No, but there's lots of like versions like
Justice League babies.
Brainiac, the supervillain, his line doesn't end up, but goes to Brainiac 5, who becomes a superhero. So like you can change like the legacy of your family by from generation to generation.
Like the Joker's kid is like, oh, my dad's so lame. He does the worst jokes.
Well, it's funny that you bring this up. So Batman Beyond is now part of canon DC.
Ooh.
Not necessarily everything that happened in the animated series is part of that, but in the animated series, there are these two villains called Dee Dee that are like kind of gymnasty clownish. They're reminiscent of Harley Quinn, but they're twins. And in one episode,
like Children of the Corn,
Dee Dee gets bailed out of prison by Grandma Harley.
What?
So in that, it's implied that Joker and Harley got together and that's whatever that combination is lives on. That even though Harley has kind of reformed and is living like a normal life as just like a grandmother in this future, that Dee Dee they've inherited that like Joker Harley crazy supervillain thing. That might not be part of the current like canon of Batman Beyond, but that's another example of that even those traits that aren't necessarily like powers or things like that, there's an element of like once part of the sort of pantheon of heroes and villains, always part of the pantheon of heroes and villains. So yeah, that's definitely part of it. And those possible futures allow lots of storytelling where you can see what like different combinations of heroes and villains would come up with.
I'm kind of disappointed that happened, where they made a crazy couple of twins.
No, they didn't, because Harley's their grandmother.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Crazy skips a generation.
Yeah, maybe it skips.
So like their parents,
their father's an accountant.
Yeah,
and then he was like, supervillain kids. What are the odds? And then he calculated them, and he was like, oh, shit.
Actually, oh shit, that adds up. He just leaves them in jail. He's like, I just don't have time for this. It's tax season.
That's why Grandma had to
Very
bail
busy.
them out. There you go. We just filled that in. That's some good headcanon.
She's got some crazy cookies for them at home.
Yeah. I hope that
They're
answered the
just
question,
edibles.
JB.
They're just edibles.
Yeah.
It is the future.
That's right.
Have Grandma's crazy cookies.
I feel like we answered a lot
We did.
of questions.
And covered quite a bit of ground.
Yeah.
Before we...
And we created a whole bunch of new shit, too.
We did. And before we, like, totally
Oh yeah.
finish up, I've got...
White gloves
We
are coming on.
haven't done this in a while.
Yeah. I've got the gloves out.
Pitter, patter, pitter, patter, pitter, patter.
Let's get out of it.
Before I turn this over to you, I'll just say one thing.
It's not 1970s porn.
It's not.
Okay.
This is a relatively recent comic book. It's a one and done. It's one contained story in one issue, which I think you'll like. And I'm giving you a version with what's called a variant cover. So on each, sometimes when they put out issues, they'll make like a special variant cover. And sometimes they'll do it as like a series. So like all of the books coming out in November will have, we're going to recreate famous movie posters with the characters from the books. And that's what this one is. It's a movie poster variant of Action Comics number 40. There you go.
Oh, cool. Bill and Ted.
Yeah, it's recreating the Bill
That's
and
all you
Ted
get to hear.
But yeah, like I said, it's a one and done. It's a whole story in one issue, which I think you'll like. It's a very fun story, but I'll give you that to read and we'll discuss it next episode. This is Action Comics Volume 2, number 40, I should say.
Yeah.
History is about to be rewritten by two aliens you can't spell.
Oh, sweet.
All right. Whoa.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well, I'm tired.
Well, how about we talk about where people can find us?
Malibu, duh.
Facebook.com/The Trail Sounds.
Yes, that's right.
But then for us,
If you want to find the Dr. DC Comics podcast, you can find us at... Oh, God, this is so much.
it's not even right.
If you want to find us on Facebook, go to...
Dr. DC Podcast.
or on Instagram at...
Dr. DC Podcast.
Over on Twitter.
At Dr. DC.
Our website.
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
You can send us emails at
drdcpodcast@gmail.com.
Oh, and make sure to go to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe, and make sure you can leave a What Colin Does with a 5-star review, and we'll make sure Colin reads it. We haven't gotten them in a while. I'd love to get one of those.
I love how we kind of sound like
Give us the gold coin.
I'm really running out of ideas.
we're like that stepchild in the family who's like, oh, I thought you said you were going to come pick me up for baseball. And I waited, and then nobody came, and I'm still here.
The voice you just did there made me think of that one character from Big Mouth. Like the girl with the curly hair. That's what it's. That's
actually really good. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Yeah, that's what I was going for. Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, please leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a What Colin Does. Those reviews do help us move like higher in the rankings, so it's easier for people to find us. On Google Play, do whatever Google Play does that does the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Does anyone know how Google Play works?
Someone actually asked me
I know that
today.
we're on there.
Someone was like, I don't find you guys, and I sent them a link, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot we were on Google Play. So we're on Google Play.
Yeah.
And on our website and Libsyn.
Yeah, exactly. So next episode we're going to explore that comic with Colin, and we'll put the call out for some questions
Next
as well.
Dr. DC time. Next Dr. DC channel.
That's just in a possible future, though. Maybe next episode we will do something totally different.
That's definitely possible.
Well, some kind of sign off.
Adios.
Hashtag Super Todd.
All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure.